Hello, there we go. That was Trevor Weston's Subwaves, just a little bit of an excerpt. It was performed May 6, 2023 by the New York Philharmonic and the Music Advancement Program students, David Geffen Hall in New York, as part of a program called Composing Inclusion, which happens to be the title of this session. We're going to tell you a little bit more about this program and hope it inspires you to do something similar in your own community. First, I want to say that this project was supported by a grant by the Sphinx Venture Fund. It was powered by the Sphinx Venture Fund. And we're super grateful for this amazing support and enabled us to do this 2-year program with an incredible infusion of support. We also have a lot of people to introduce you to. So I'm going to start with our panelists. Actually, I'd start with myself. Vanessa Rose. I'm super excited to talk about the composers, but I'm Vanessa Rose. I'm the executive director of the American Composers Forum. I use she, her pronouns. And I was very honored to be a part of the creation and advancement of this program. And I'm going to turn it over to my partner here, both your name and how you were involved in the project.
Hi everyone, my name is Weston Sprott. I'm Dean and Director of the Preparatory Division at the Juilliard School, a co-founder of the Black Orchestral Network, and a trombonist in the Metropolitan Opera. My involvement in this program, which we'll talk about pretty soon, is basically as the instigator of it. Ended up having my finger in the pot at basically every turn of it, but just kind of putting the idea out there and then finding a way to connect with all these amazing people that are here on the panel with me and these amazing composers who are here on the front row with us as well. So,
hello. Oh, shoot, it's loud. Sorry, I make jokes, so forgive me. They'll turn my mic off in a second, too. We'll see. In any case, my name is Gary. I'm the Vice President of Education and Community Engagement at the New York Philharmonic. He, him pronouns. Also father to Camille and Isabel, 2 beautiful girls at home. I guess my role in this was being honored to pick up the phone when this dude called with the idea of putting this program together. So working at the Philharmonic, was able to provide the musicians and to some extent the platform to be able to make this happen. And it's definitely been an honor to work with everybody at this table.
Hey everyone, my name is Jordyn Davis, and I'm a bassist, composer, educator. It's also good to be home here in Detroit. And my involvement in this project was I was one of the inaugural composers selected for an orchestral commission in this program.
Hello, my name is Carolina Heredia. I'm a composer with a background in multimedia production and the director of programs at the American Composers Forum. In these programs, I represented the composers in the mix of multiple parts by attending to and communicating their needs and challenges. Also to assist the 2 organizations in the collaborative process, including coordinating logistics and communication.
Thank you. So this program involved 9 commissions, and almost all of the composers are here today. You already met Jordyn, and I'm going to invite the others who are here today to stand up. I guess you can't see them very well, but please come to the front and meet them in person afterwards or at our party afterwards. But first I'm going to start with Jasmine Barnes. Just stay standing up. Stay standing up. Nicholas Lel Benavides. James Diaz. Thomas Flippin, Elijah J. Thomas, and Trevor Weston. Bravi. So Trevor was also an integral advisor to the program, as well as having a commission. And I want to mention 2 of the composers who could not be with us today, but hopefully can be at Sphinx next year. That is Lauren McCall and Andres Soto. And then there's another composer who you'll see on this image, Patricia Martinez, who was selected for this program, and very sadly, even before we were able to start working with her, passed away. So yeah, thank you. We want to honor her memory. We will be playing a piece of hers at a future date, and certainly want to celebrate her involvement in this program. All right, moving on. This crazy big 2-year project, Weston. Tell us, how did it start?
sure. Well, I can first say that nothing comes from nothing. Vanessa and I were on a panel a handful of years ago at the Midwest Conference, and as one of the members of the panel, Jennifer Jolly, who's a composer, was there, and she was talking about how passionate she is about flexible orchestration. and the value of being able to have various generations be able to play together in a way that's seamless and meaningful for them. And I thought about the work that we're doing both at Juilliard in the pre-college and the music advancement program. Oftentimes we're trying to bring in students who are earlier in their development to work with our students. If they were to come in for a few hours, could they sit in with the music advancement program orchestra, for example? And that's not always the easiest thing to put together. And so it just started sparking my creative juices, for lack of a better term. And I thought about the concept of the side-by-side concert with professional orchestras and how oftentimes there's a difficulty there because the professional players are feeling like they're having to play music that is kind of bringing them down one level, and the young musicians feel like they're suddenly sitting next to someone who's not only playing at a different level than they are, they're at different stages of their development, but also they're suddenly being asked to play music that's perhaps too difficult for them, or we're just kind of making up parts on the fly. We're turning 16th notes into eighths and eighths into quarters and things like that to try to find some very unnatural, unintentional way to turn a piece that's already created into something that's actually workable. So the idea was, what if we started constructing pieces that were intended to be done this way? Which is kind of an old school way of doing things. You think about Britain's Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra was intended for young people to be able to play with professionals. What would it look like to do that again in a more thoughtful, intentional way, and to do that in a way that is inclusive, brings in new voices, creates an amazing educational experience for the student, a great experience for the composers, so that would be a win for everybody. And what ended up happening, I think this was in the middle of the pandemic. We're all sitting at home wondering what we're gonna do when we actually get a chance to get together. And I thought about this, and I called you, and I said, hey, what do you think? Is this a stupid idea? You're like, no, it's not a stupid idea. Okay, let's call Gary. Gary, what do you think? Do you think the New York Philharmonic would do that? Yeah, they would do that. That would be very cool. Okay, how much is this gonna cost? Let's apply for a Sphinx Venture Fund. You think it'll work? I don't know, let's try. And a few years later, here we are.
Here we are. Thank you. Yeah. By the way, I met Weston at the Sphinx conference 5 years ago, I think. So you never know where those conversations you're having now will lead. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what happened next in terms of the application process, because this actually precedes Carolina's involvement at ACF. And shout out to the staff members who were there at the time, Billy Lackey and Damian Strange, and their involvement. We do a lot of funding programs at ACF, so we really just built on these frameworks, and but really thoughtfully as partners thought about what are the things that we're looking for. Obviously, we want to hear their music, we want to know a little bit about their background, but also we want to know how are they thinking about the work with, just as Weston described, this kind of flex score and working with the students and the professional musicians. Obviously, having a New York Phil premiere is kind of cool, but also we wanted people that were really going to be interested and curious about working with the students. At ACF, we're also very intentional about trying to create the most equitable process possible. So things like being able to submit a video instead of a written statement were part of the process. In addition to Gary, Weston, me, and Trevor, we had Jacinta Cluselas review all of the proposals together, and then 22 people were advanced to interviews. That included also Anthony McGill, who's the artistic advisor of the Music Advancement Program and principal clarinet of the New York Phil. And I have to give a shout out to Megan Chang, who works with Weston at Juilliard, who had a lot of wizardry scheduling for all of these things and has been incredible support throughout the program. Yeah, cheers to Megan. We also offer, this is something we always do at ACF, but offering feedback to everybody I think is really important, whether or not they advanced. And then also, it was important to us that we include, with their permission, the finalists on the announcement. So even if they didn't get the award, we included everybody that we talked with because, let's face it, we hear these questions often. I don't know any Black composers, or whatever the question may be. And here was an incredible list of artists that we wanted to make sure leveraged this opportunity to be more visible. So after the selection process, you want to talk about what happened next?
Well, what happened is we started working with these amazing composers, and one of the first things that we did is we had a convening in New York City at Juilliard in November. I guess this is November of 22 that we did this, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Sometimes my years get confused. But I thought, we want to make sure that this is not just a project, this is not just a commission where we send you a contract, write us a piece, we'll see it, we play it. We want it to be something that's much more involved in that. So all of the composers came to New York, and we we basically curated a really thoughtful weekend for them to be able to interact with musicians both in the music advancement program, in the pre-college, in the New York Philharmonic, to have advising sessions on what it's like to do flexible orchestration work. All the composers came to a class that we have called Map Rally in the morning, which is basically a community building class for our students in music advancement program that's at 8:30 a.m. But the students had the opportunity to interact with the composers and talk about what they enjoy when they're playing music. What do they like? What do they want to see in a piece? One of the things that stands out to me is one of the tuba players who said, "We never have melodies in the tuba. We just play oompa all the time. If you're going to write a piece, could you please write me a melody?" And then 7 months later, sing that tuba player have a melody on the stage with David
Yep.
Geffen Hall at the New York Philharmonic. It's like this is where that seed was planted. In addition to that, just having an opportunity for the composers to feel like they're not working in a silo, but actually working within a community of composers, having the opportunity to communicate with one another. Just, I think for all of us, just seeing all of those black and brown faces and great thinkers and great composers in the boardroom at the Juilliard School working together to better the future and the opportunities for young students was a very powerful visual in and of itself, and the reality of what it was pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, thank you. It was an incredibly moving experience for everybody involved. I'm going to hop over Gary and go to Jordyn. As a composer who was part of this process, and we kept talking about we're building the plane while we're flying it, very curious to hear from you about everything that Weston just described. What was your experience as a composer coming into this?
Yeah, so honestly, before applying for this program, I was in a place in my career where I had stopped taking commissions because I was so frustrated by the collaboration process. As composers, especially composers of color and women, we receive a lot of disrespect from collaborators who don't truly invest in the idea of collaboration and just want to perform and want to claim, that they're doing the good work and they're being intentional about the funds that they're spending to commission us. But I, have had experienced some really terrible things that forced me to stop taking commissions and stop writing altogether. So when I saw this opportunity, I knew of ACF because when I was a student, they were constantly posting opportunities that had led me to different places in my career and supported me as a student. And seeing this opportunity, I was like, okay, I feel like I can kind of trust this organization, and also seeing that there was an opportunity to workshop your orchestral piece or whatever piece that you were offered to be commissioned. And it wasn't, again, like we're not in this silo. We're actively in the rehearsals, working with the conductors, working with the students, working with the professional players, and constantly in conversation. And that was exactly what I was looking for. And especially as a creative who does not identify with any type of box genre-wise, I wanted to be able to write my very first orchestra piece and not feel like it needed to sound like Brahms or it needed to be Mahler 5 or whatever. It could be Jordyn Davis #1. So I was very excited about that opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Jordyn. So orchestras come up sometimes in these conversations at Sphinx. And I'm curious, Gary, as a representative of the New York Philharmonic, coming into this, from your perspective, how did you get, because this was, and it continues to be, not just, showing up. We really wanted the musicians. They were part of this November cohort too. Some musicians came and met with the composers. How did you get the buy-in, and how did you engage with the orchestra in this project?
I'm like, this is being recorded.
Step one.
Yeah. No, I think honestly where it starts with is relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been at the Philharmonic now for about 5.5 years, and I would say at this point I've been able to build pretty solid relationships with players in the orchestra. But that said, with the Philharmonic being the oldest orchestra in the country, there's a lot of tradition kind of baked into what is expected. So to some extent, for the musicians to play side by side with members of the Juilliard pre-college or MAP program was a big deal for them because they felt like they were helping the next generation of artists. But I think that the stumbling block for many of the players is to understand, the idea of living composers now being a part of the equation for their learning, which is also critical. But I think for many of our members, is understanding not only the importance of young people learning, but learning in a space that feels like the repertoire, the folks who are creating the work, reflects their ideas, their identity, et cetera. And so, to be honest with you, I'm still getting buy-in today because it's not like a done deal where everyone is completely bought into it. But I would say that for this, being recorded, right? I'm just being straight. This is, we're at Sphinx, right? But I think the reality is, I mean, there are certain programs that allow for these types of activities to happen, like our young people's concerts, which we can get into. But I'll say that once the program was done, and I think the way my perspective is, it's not only the idea of getting, you know, these incredible young not young, but these incredible composers to be, not to say you're not young, oh shoot, oh man, I'm sorry. Someone turn off my mic, please. But these, yeah, Trevor, you're young too. But these incredible composers to be a part of our ecosystem, but also I think this is transforming the Philharmonic as well.
Yeah.
So as much as everyone's learning and everyone's growing, we're learning just the same. So I think, you know, we're different because of this opportunity. So I'll just end at that.
That was a great answer, Gary. Well done. Well done. Thank you. We're going to keep your mic on. Okay, so a little bit more music. How about that? We're going to play just a few excerpts because, you know, we can only do excerpts and get a little flavor of some of the other pieces.
One of the goals for this project was to write pieces that were flexible. And flexibility has so many meanings, but in this case, I was using a kind of writing that allows the members of the orchestra to play a little bit faster or a little bit slower, so every time sounds a little bit different.
There's a lot of flexibility built into this work, so players can create some of their own sounds. Let's ask Emma, here in the violin section, to tell us what it's been like to work on this piece.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Hong, I'm 17, and this is my third year at MAP. So, when we first got our parts for And Does the Moon Also Fall, I'm pretty confident in saying that most of us, if not all of us, were completely perplexed by what we saw on the page. However, learning how to play this piece and navigating our way through it has been an eye-opening experience, and it's really pushed us to our musical and our creative limits. At times when it sounds like we're playing random notes, what we're really doing is interpreting the music as well as Mr. Diaz's specific instructions that are unique to this piece only. So overall, it's been a great learning experience for all of us, and it's a great piece. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoying this process because the composers were with us during the rehearsal, so they were available to answer questions and make requests. And the rehearsal process with the composers and the Music Advancements Program students was particularly special. Ariel from the cello section is here to tell us a little more about what it was like.
Hi everyone, my name is Ariel Alejandro. I'm 17, I'm from the Bronx. And I think the thing I enjoyed most about the rehearsal was definitely the groove that it had to it. You could really feel the music, it was easy to listen to, it was easy to play. Well, not really, but it was a piece that I'm definitely gonna remember. And it was really fun also rehearsing with Jordyn and getting her input.
So you can already hear how different each artist was and how differently they approached this project, which has been one of the most fun parts of this. And there's so many different stories, but another story, I think, listening to some of the students was for James's piece, there was circular bowing that was in the score, and one of the Philharmonic players was like, what is this? And the student next to them said, oh, yeah, I'll show you, right? Awesome. Okay, well, You've now been hearing a little bit more about the program, and we want to dive in a little bit deeper about what actually makes this program unique. And I'm going to bring my colleague Carolina into the conversation and talk about where it is for you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Well, to me, many commissioning programs lack composer representation on the organization side, and it's proven essential to have a person who understands the challenging task of creating and the multi-dimensional nature of creation, which includes so much more than just writing notes on a paper or software. And this is even more important for a program with the complex logistics of writing for a flex score, for two orchestras from two organizations coming together. In this case, the composition advisor role, Trevor Weston, assisted composers with figuring out those logistics matters that influenced musical decisions throughout the entire writing process. And in the administrative role, I attended to the composers and advised on logistics and communication strategies to get us all to the final line together. To me, success, and to all of us, success involved everybody. And we all depended on each other, the composer, the ensemble, the staff, and the audience.
Thank you. Jordyn, from the composer's perspective.
Yes, this program is incredibly unique for a lot of different reasons, but I think my favorite unique characteristic of it is the fact that after you submit your scores and you explain what your idea for the collaboration is, that you were actually interviewed. And I had never previously gotten an opportunity to actually speak for myself and speak on behalf of my work, to get an opportunity to then grow my portfolio. And like I said, it was my first piece of orchestral music and had a lot of chamber works and was really interested in exploring large ensemble writing. And it was great to be able to speak to that with Trevor in my interview and, you know, really also speak to my experience of working with kids and having the understanding of how to approach writing a piece like this or how to approach this collaborative process.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Weston, for the students.
I think for the students, it was an absolutely amazing experience on a lot of different levels. And thus far, we've put a lot of focus on the orchestral commissions, but I just wanted to make sure that for everyone's awareness that we did both orchestral commissions and chamber commissions. So there were 5 orchestral commissions and then chamber commissions for string ensemble, woodwind ensemble, brass ensemble, and percussion ensemble. Last year, one of the string ensemble commission, which was done by Thomas Flippen, who's sitting here on the end, that was just an amazing piece based on the history of Seneca Village. Yeah. And the premiere of that piece was done at Mother AME Zion Church in Harlem, yeah. Which, as that happened, it was just this really magical educational experience. All the things we talk about having culturally relevant educational opportunities for our students were embodied in that particular performance in so many ways. And thinking about students from the music advancement program, the pre-college, and the New York Philharmonic all sitting next to each other in this historic venue where Frederick Douglass was married, and that in that church down the street from Central Park, where this incredible story of Seneca Village, where that history is, having that history told to them, having it written into the score, and then getting to perform a work that includes narration in the second movement that one of our students read. That to me was like, this is what this education is supposed to be about. So in that way, I thought it was magical, and also the opportunity for our students not only to get to engage with composers and learn about the way that they think and be able to see people who look like themselves reflected both in the music and standing up in front of the chamber ensemble or the orchestra and talking about their work. But of course, I mean, it goes without saying, the opportunity for our students to be able to sit side by side with members of the New York Philharmonic who play at this extraordinarily high level, and it gives them a clarity of vision about what is possible with the instrument they have in their hand, but in a way that doesn't make them feel like they are belittled in any way. They're sitting there with a part that is specifically designed for them, that they're capable of doing in a way where they feel accomplished when they're done. And a memory that stands out to me is we had the first rehearsal with the full orchestra on a Friday. The concert was on a Saturday. And at the break of the rehearsal, I walked backstage, and of course I'm shaking hands with the students and asking them, how's it going? Are you having a good time? Is everything okay? You know, you want to make sure everyone's being treated well. And one of our students, bass player, Ben, I said, Ben, how's it going? And he looked me dead in the face and he goes, this is what I want to do. and I thought to myself, this project, and we'll probably get into this portion of it as well, has been an incredible amount of work. Putting together all these puzzle pieces is no simple task, and I can assure you that there were moments when I bet all of us were going like, who told us we should do this? And I was like, it was me, but please don't worry. But at that moment, when you get that type of visceral feedback from a student, it clarifies it was totally worth it.
Definitely. And just another little anecdote. We all went to Juilliard after that New York Phil map premiere. We all went to Juilliard for a little party afterwards with all the students. And one of my board members was in the elevator with some of the students and overheard one say to the other, "Best day ever." That's why we do it. Okay, so Gary, you talked a little bit about, and actually we're seeing some photos of some of the pre-concert activities that were happening with the composers and some young people. And I'm curious to hear, how did you link this to both the Very Young Composers program and the Young People's Concerts at New York Phil?
Yeah, so we at the Philharmonic, we have a program called the Very Young Composers, where we help young people with or without a musical background to write pieces for the orchestra or for professional players. And I think, it was a really incredible link to be able to have this program with the Composing Inclusion sort of guide some of these kids, our kids, I should say. So I think the one big link was first like having Jacinta, be one of the judges for the program. That was essential. But I think the overall sort of link was also just looking at when Weston called me and he said, "Can you, do you think this could work?" I was thinking about what existing programs we have. So of course, like we know that we have 4 YPCs every year. So how can we figure out a way to get, we know that the players will be there, so we don't have to worry about folks volunteering for these opportunities. So it was easy enough to get, easy enough, that's not true, but it was possible for the students to be able to be on stage, during that same period with us. And I should say that, huge props to Juilliard kids, and I'm sure all the students that are around the country could do this, but the Philharmonic only has 1 rehearsal prior to a Young People's Concert. And so obviously these kids were working before that, but like when they came with the Philharmonic, it was 1 rehearsal and then a concert, and that was it. And they came ready, prepared to work, which, again, giving them props and their teachers as well. But even before the YPC, we had pre-concert activities where we had, the composers sort of at a booth talking to families. We had activities that were very much, aligned with the theme of composing inclusion. And so I think overall, when people were coming into the space to the concert, they weren't surprised because they already knew they were able to kind of experience, the composers, the music, and the process. I'll just add one other part to the Mother Zion piece, which was the fact that, that was also an existing program that we were sort of working on with Lincoln Center. I'm not sure if Lynn is here, but a colleague of mine and I were talking about this program, and it was tied to this work by Paul Robeson, and it happened to be Paul Robeson's 100th, I think it was the 100th anniversary of his birthday. I don't know if you're here, correct me if I'm wrong. And so when the idea came up for Seneca Village, it was kind of like serendipitous because Mother Zion was partly responsible, or majority responsible, for building Seneca Village. And so the fact that we were already in this space and this wonderful idea came up, and we were talking about Paul Robeson, who was actually, his funeral was in that building. I mean, it was incredible to sort of have this sort of, merge of experiences and ideas. I mean, the spirit of that was incredible. So I'm really fortunate to be able to uplift, the work of our composers through opportunities like that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you mentioned how prepared the students were, and just want to emphasize how grateful we are for everybody who helped along the way at the school. I see some people here as well. The teachers, the coaches. I mean, there were so many people involved in this. And there were so many people involved in this, and it was a lot of work, as Weston mentioned. So we also want to be really transparent about some of the things that we learned along the way, because we hope you're going to do this too and can learn from our learning. So Carolina, could you share a little bit more about some of the things that we are taking away from the experience?
Yeah, I had a long list of things to share here, but then I realized we didn't have enough time, so you can talk to any of us after the talk. But I would first like to say that it takes more than a little bit of money and 20 minutes of rehearsal to make a difference in supporting Black and Latinx composers. In between cycle 1 and cycle 2, we did a deep process of review with all parts involved, performers, composers, staff, and also among ourselves. And this informed a 12-page guidelines document that we're using for the second cycle. I will take this moment to encourage all of you to check out the Nation Fe Commission discussion guide on our website, and there are some QR codes here and in some of the tables so that you can access that. This is a resource that is free and available to all and was created by music lawyer Ari Solotov of Solotov Law in consultation with ACF staff, or partners, and an initial cohort of composers, publishers, and industry leaders. This discussion guide helps to frame the considerations that should be discussed between artistic parties prior to commissioning a new concert work for large ensemble. And it includes information about standard practices, recommendations, and some legal frameworks regarding composers' rights that we should all be aware of, particularly concerning recording and licensing rights. In synthesis, for the Composing Inclusion Program, we put the efforts into making a commissioning program that sets up composers, ensembles, and staff for success from the beginning and throughout. And that takes clarity, transparency, and accountability from all parts, including composers.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's not as obvious what ACF's role is here, and I hope it's becoming evident that our engagement has been, incredible. It's an equal partnership, and it's always felt that way, which I'm very grateful for. And even though we're the smaller size organization, and we're also a little bit more nimble, so we were able to really, really heavily engage in an ongoing partnership, lots of meetings, and ensure that composers and those working with the composers had the clarity, the transparency, and accountability that Caroline is talking about. I want to take a moment too. She mentioned Anatomy of a Commission, which is this digital resource that we've launched at ACF, because so many people involved in that are actually in this room. So I want to do just a little bit of a thank you. So as she said, the QR code is here. It's on our website, composersforum.org. As you're thinking about commissioning, whether it's a project like this or something else, I hope you'll see it as a valuable resource, both in terms of things to talk about, especially early on, the relationship building, and also different examples of what a really positive, equitable experience can look like. So I just want to thank Daniel Bernard Romaine and Melissa Nahn and Rachel Roberts and her students from Eastman School of Music, as well as Team ACF, for their involvement in putting that forward. So thank you. Yeah. Jordyn, you've been so wonderful with sharing your experiences thus far, and curious, what are some of the things that were more challenging for you as part of this project?
Challenging. I think when you're doing something for the first time and you're in a brand new program, you just kind of have to accept that you are the guinea pig and be prepared for, if you can prepare, I don't know that exists, but prepare yourself at least to be thrown at anything and to just kind of have to go with the flow. I think the biggest challenge that I endured with my piece was actually just like a post-production thing, working with a copyist and not being satisfied with that part of the process. But ultimately, what was great was, we as a team were able to work through those challenges together. It wasn't just, oh, they messed up your piece, good luck getting it to the New York Phil and fixing it. It was, hey, okay, we noticed something, we got to come up with a game plan. Are you available? We want to support you. We want to figure this out together. And we're going to make sure that the premiere happens and that you're not in a position where the rehearsal goes horrible because we only had one rehearsal with the orchestras together. So I would say those were a notable challenge for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Hence year 2, benefiting from such challenged and learning. Thank you. So we're going to try to offer some helpful aspects of this for you, again, hoping that this inspires you to consider at a whatever scalable size it might be for you. It doesn't have to be 9 composers, but I hope that you consider doing this in your own community. So Caroline, I'm going to start with you. What do you think would be helpful for our audience to know about this program as they consider their own version of it?
For commissioners, I would say put in a lot of thoughts and choosing your composer, having an idea of why, how, Make sure you understand the composer's musical language in terms of sound, concept, and notation style. Some composers may speak multiple languages in that sense, and some may not. I do encourage large ensembles to be open to exploring other musical practices because I believe that's the only way to continue to move forward. But with the understanding that that may require adaptations throughout the entire process. And take advantage of working with living composers and allow them to be involved in the rehearsal process, maybe even early workshops. Because a composer, unless is extremely busy, will always be very happy to be involved, particularly for the premiere. And this may also assist performers in connecting with the work and the persons better.
Thank you. Gary, you alluded to this earlier in terms of orchestras are still about relationships. They're people that help us move this forward. And wonder what you can offer also in terms of, if you don't have the budget size of a New York Philharmonic, what are some things that might be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think I strongly believe that a program like this is totally scalable. So obviously, we started with the idea of commissioning 9 or 10 composers. But certainly for any orchestra, you can start with one composer, for example. But I would say in terms of, as far as like looking at expenses that might be cost relieving, what are existing programs that you have where you can incorporate a program like this into what is already happening on your side. And also I think as far in advance, as you can think of to basically plan something like this. So for example, we were fortunate to do this because of the support from Sphinx. If that didn't happen, obviously we would have had to have a different track. And so I think, whatever your journey is, obviously consider, what types of funding is allowable, will allow for you to be able to present this work. But I'll also just add the fact that this is a very human process. This is not a process that is transactional. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're all transforming through this activity. And so I would say, the more that you can work on relationships with the orchestra, with any stakeholders, whether it be community partners, to really look towards building something that really reflects where you are, whatever place you're in, because it will be meaningful, whatever that is. So if it's a matter of you starting with a small chamber concert, chamber program featuring these composers, then great. If it's a full orchestra, then amazing, whatever that is. But I would also say that because we're here because we want you to be able to play their music, right? And so I think the idea is when you're doing your thing, that you can not only hear all of their work, but develop your own. And so also find platforms where you can help advance and advocate for living composers and for these processes to exist within your programs.
Thank you. I think it's worth adding, too, that obviously aligned values, collaboration's complicated, right? I'm sure a lot of you do collaborations. And I think it really helps that the three of us already had a relationship. We liked hanging out with each other before we entered into this. I think we still do. We're not done yet, so let's see. But it definitely, I think, contributed to our ability to just kind of, go with it and keep going with it. Jordyn, what do you think for those that are thinking about composers? What are some of the things that would be really beneficial for people to know about this one?
Absolutely. So as you all have heard, there's been an equal investment in this program across all of these organizations, New York Philharmonic, ACF, the Sphinx organization, and Juilliard Preparatory Division. It wasn't just one of these organizations leading the way. They all were very, very intentional about putting this process together and keeping in mind they're working with living composers with thoughts and feelings and blood and beating hearts, and voices more specifically. And something, like I said, one of my favorite parts of this program was getting to be interviewed because they got a chance to get to know us as people before they said, oh, your score is immaculate, you're probably great or whatever. It wasn't really about that. It's like, okay, sure, we see you can write, but like, what kind of person are you? How invested are you in the next generation's voices? How invested are you in changing these institutional practices that are not really uplifting folks anymore and are not sustainable? And also, through the intentionality of this program, I'm not sure if they realize, but they have created a community for us individual composers who would have no reason to all know each other and get together outside of being involved in this program. And now we all get to know each other and create and expand our communities and continue to invest in each other. And I'm rooting for everybody up here, and I know they're rooting for me too. And that feels really great to be able to have that support, because there's no, okay, sorry. I'm serious, like, because there's no composers union, there's no composers, there's no gaggle of composers hanging out, you know, like we have collectives and that sort of things, but there's no orchestra of composers doing the thing. So, yeah, I think what's important to note in, you know, potentially expanding or replicating this program is, like, I have had many experiences where organizations say, oh, I love this idea that this organization is doing, and they're uplifting, you know, marginalized voices and that sort of thing. And they think it's a copy-paste kind of vibe, and that's not it at all. Each person's voice, experiences, and understanding of our lived experiences as creatives in this field were considered and were prioritized. And to have my well-being considered in a commissioning process or in any type of collaboration is all I'm really asking for. And I know that it doesn't seem like a big ask, but it's really, really hard to get. Like, to start a collaboration with so much respect, like, felt like a true privilege and honor. So if you want to keep doing this, like, start with respect and intention. It's not about getting the job done and getting to say you commissioned this person. Like, who cares? Did you connect with this artist? Did you get to know their story? Did you get to hear their voice, you know? So,
Yeah.
I was just going to add that I'm really hopeful that the work that we did is something that will be inspiring to others, and that you will consider doing it in your own communities, whatever city, small or large, that is. I think what we've put together here, this team, is something that is scalable and possible in basically every single community. And it's not lost on me the social capital and resources that are attached to organizations like the New York Philharmonic or the Juilliard School. And I understand that can be something where you think, oh, well, they can do that, but we can't do that. I believe that you can. I believe there's a way to do that. I think it's possible. I think it's meaningful, and it's worth investing in and taking the time to do it, because it's going to have a dramatic impact on everyone in the musical community. And there should be a way to make sure that those students who are just picking up an instrument for the first time have a really nice bridge to every other place along that pathway. The person who is the most highly skilled and developed musician needs to have a relationship with the kid who just picked up their instrument for the first time. That's what the community is all about. All of these people are artists. I mean, the kid who's just learning their first major scales is an artist. It's in there. They haven't necessarily gotten all the technical skills to make it come out of their instrument yet, but giving them that connection is a huge piece. Also, I would say that this work is something that we hope will be continued and will not be performative. Something that I just want to share as a plug. We just launched a webpage today on the Juilliard website that lists all the various commissions that we've done in the preparatory division over the last couple of years. The last 2 years or so, we've commissioned and premiered over 50 works, and we have the intention to do at least 10 more works every year, forever. And the vast majority of those works have been by BIPOC and female composers. So I remember a few years ago, when I first started at Juilliard, I was sitting in a meeting, and I said, you know, I think that we're going to plan to have BIPOC or female composers in every large ensemble program that we do. And someone said, oh, that's really great. Is that like a special focus for this year? And I said, yes, it is, and next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and every year forever, because that's just the way that we do stuff. So I hope that you all will take all of that into account and think about that when you're programming, whether that's works that have been around for a long time or commissions. Maybe you have the resources to do one commission, and then you come and check out our website and see the amazing work of all these people who are here, and decide you want to give them their second, third, fourth, fifth, 500th, hopefully, performance to make this happen, because the music that they've created for us, really, it's fantastic, and it deserves to have a long life.
We're going to be moving into questions, so you can start thinking about your questions. There's a microphone that's going to be coming up here as well as online. And while we're gathering, please consider your question. I just want to repeat respect and intention, as Jordyn said, and hopefully you also hear that this is so much more than just this one experience. There's so many ripple effects that are already happening. The cohort of composers among them, and also for the students, for the parents, for the people who are at this concert, and obviously for all of us. That's really important, I think, too. That it's really about the long-term impact. I see some questions already.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Jalen. I'm your engagement liaison, so I'll just be helping you guys through the Q&A. So something really quick, I just want to give you guys a heads up. If you go into the Sphinx app and you click convening schedule, and then you click our session, it should bring up a page where you see a little tab that says ask questions. And then once you click that, you'll be free to type whatever questions you have. Make sure that you like any question that you find relatable or that you want answered as well. And I'll just see it, and that way I'll know what questions are the most popular among the audience. All right.
Hello, my name is Ash Gordon, Castle Lover Skins, Boston-based concert series. So beautiful to hear all of this, and thank you all for what you're doing. My question is around the longevity of the idea. So this is so great, and understand it can be scalable. I love this 12-page guide about the sort of ins and outs, the meats of it. I wonder if there's a publishing aspect of this. So the music has been created. Maybe there's a how-to and how to engage with the score now that you have the score.
Yep.
Is that a part 2 for year 2, or can you talk about the longevity aspect?
Yes, ACF Publications actually will be publishing the works with the composer's consent. We still haven't got all of the consents, but Thomas Flippin, his string quartet is actually going to be released very soon in our new Choral Quest series, and the orchestra pieces are going to be released on the Orchestra new series. So that's definitely the idea. We want to support them on that as soon as they agree. ACF has a really, we're on the composer side, so all our agreements are always benefiting the composers and making sure that the rights and as much as possible, all the profit goes to them. And that will make them available to much more audiences. The orchestra pieces are usually distributed with Hal Leonard and other distributors that are well-known and available throughout the country.
Yeah, so for over 20 years we've been doing this series already, Banquest. We actually did a Banquest with Valerie Coleman with Juilliard before this. But we can also already report that some of these pieces are already having second and third performances planned. So definitely a future for the work is important as well.
All right, Michael has a question for Jordyn. What advice would you give groups interested in commissioning from underrepresented composers, and what advice would you give them for how to meaningfully commission and collaborate? Excuse me.
Absolutely. Listen to their music, first of all, and find some things that you like about their music that you can talk to them about, because it goes beyond just being a music creator that you get to decide you want to give money to. I guess kind of along with everything that I have already said, about taking an opportunity to actually get to know the person who's creating the work for you is huge, because especially for me, like I'm somebody in chamber works, I like to write for the individual player, and that was kind of like a concept that I pitched for this interaction and for this collaboration. And it was very much so supported, and I think just like creating a safe space for creatives to be able to interact with you and have a field of transparency also, so that they know that they're being respected in the process. And just really, I know I keep saying the same thing, respect and intention, but like it's pretty insane how hard that is to come by sometimes doing these things. So just, understand the reasons why you want to work with them and gas them up, because the music that they're writing has to continue to be made. We like affirmations here, and buy their music and continue to tell your colleagues to purchase and buy their music. To speak on the piece getting a second and third performance, the conductor for the MAP Orchestra, Catherine Burke, who is an instrumental part in this collaboration and process as well, is an educator in upstate New York, and her orchestra is actually performing my piece As I Am again this year. So just come as you are, and also come with respect.
Hi there, my name's Tanner. I'm a composer and educator based in Nebraska right now. My question is really for Jordyn. Jordyn, I loved your little excerpt that we got to hear, and I'm really excited to check out the rest of the piece and more of your work. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about how you approached the flex orchestrations. Is your piece designed crucially to have both the professional and the student level parts mixed together, or can your piece be played with just one set of parts or the other?
That's a great question, because that was also a huge part of my intention behind writing this piece. So the piece was more specifically written for the members of the MAP Orchestra. So I was writing with their level of performance experience in mind, but also wanted to challenge them. Like, I got my start in music as an 11-year-old in a middle school orchestra 20 miles away from here, playing the double bass, and was the only bass player, in that orchestra for forever. And so I know what as a young orchestra student, like what it is that you want to learn how to play, or what kind of things that you want to be able to experience on your instrument. And as a composer, like, I draw from so many different places, and I wanted to be able to bring the kids into that experience, and not having it just feel like this is only this type of music, or that we're only going to play in this style. Like, the piece kind of goes through a lot of different parts of style and journey and interpretation and that sort of thing. And I also put things in there that I knew that, a traditional performer, a professional performer in the New York Philharmonic is probably not used to playing a lot of grooves and syncopated rhythms and that sort of thing. So it was still a challenge for them, just a different one. And it didn't require them to be any more or less, skilled on their instrument. It's just like what your commitment was to engaging with the work. And so I guess to answer your question about the piece itself, it very much so is flexible in the way that it's notated, and the way that the parts are distributed. It's like there's a clef there, and you pick what timbre you want to play with that clef. And also, like I said, I wanted to approach this collaboration inspired by one of the composers that really has had a profound impact on my life, is Duke Ellington, who for his orchestra was writing for the individual players. So that was the approach that I wanted to take with this, and also giving the students and the professional players an opportunity to practice being autonomous in a performance space and in a piece, so that there was an equal investment in the performance, and not just feeling like they had to get the notes right, but they had to show up as themselves in the piece also.
Thank you.
Another question for Jordyn. You're pretty popular. Someone asked, what can you say about your challenges with the copyists that could benefit understanding towards this aspect of commissioning?
Ooh, you see how fast I picked up that mic? Yeah, I guess, find a copyist that is your friend and is someone that you know and that you can trust with your art, because it was really a devastating part of the process for me. I had invested so much time and energy, pouring my heart out, my little vulnerable Pisces heart into this piece, and then a copyist, yes, and then I get it back from the copyist, and there's rehearsal numbers missing, and there's things that have been reinterpreted, and I'm like, did I write the piece or did you? Who gave you permission to do this? So I think that, I have a copyist who's a great friend of mine, and he's my copyist. So that's who I will be working with from now on. But find somebody who knows what they're doing in the notation software and can help you out, because, notation software fatigue exists in the composition process. So it's important to have a friend, even if it's another composer, who's willing to help you clean that stuff up afterwards. So it's got to be somebody that you know and trust, because if it gets passed along to the wrong person, then you're back to square one, kind of rebuilding what you already spent so much time on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Naya Stevenson, and I'm also someone who is an aspiring composer, although I mainly compose for my animation short. And this is going from your question and extending this. What happens when you come across a certain difficult problem where you compose a certain line or melody that perhaps the instrument cannot register? Where do you cross that line between fixing that piece on the copyist part so that it can be playable versus having it to be indefinitely changed so that it can be playable?
I would say that part of the process, at least in this program, which was really great, happened before it even made it to the copyist. So we had an opportunity to be in the room in rehearsals with the students and getting to see if they were having any struggles performing any of the lines and getting direct feedback from them. Hey, what's good about this? What's bad about this? Is this playable? Does this work? Do you understand this? And, just using our words and communicating with one another is actually, the best way to solve a lot of these problems. And sometimes we feel like we can't talk to each other because we should know and we should have the allure and expertise already. But questions and conversation is how things grow and how things build and how you can get a great performance or a great score out of something if you're writing something for the very first time also.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll add that right there was such a critical, we talked about that early on as we were developing this, to have that, not only to have the opportunity to talk with the kids and have them say, I want a tuba part, and I hope they didn't regret that because a really big tuba part in your piece, maybe. But also the opportunity for composers, let me just say blanket statement, we need more of that, right? I don't know why for classical music we have so few of that. It doesn't happen in other... it doesn't have musical theater or plays, but we don't have that workshopping time that's just so essential for everybody involved. So anyway, grateful that was helpful.
I just wanted to add that for the second, Jordyn was part of the first cycle, and for the second cycle, we incorporated a lot of this experience, as we said, and so part of the process was an early reading session and workshop with the composers, with the Juilliard performers and coaches. And so the composer had the opportunity to show early stages of their scores and parts and receive feedback from everybody involved. That was, even though you had that as well, like we extended the times. This is what we did. We actually extended the times in between the different stages. So first draft, reading sessions, second draft, feedback, copies. And again, we were more intentional with the selection of the copies. Yeah, this is a serious issues because copies have certain practices that I would say from the past that perhaps are taking too much agency over the language of a composer, the language and notation of a composer. I, as a composer, don't agree with that. I agree with Jordyn, and so thanks for your experience. And unfortunately, we were able to be more intentional in the selection for the new cycle.
And another reason it's so valuable to have a composer who's helping to manage the project. I don't know if we have any more questions, so I'll just go ahead and plug the upcoming performances. So again, this is the second year, so we have 2 orchestral premieres still coming up, April 20th, with the New York Philharmonic and the Juilliard Pre-College Orchestra, 2 p.m., David Geffen Hall in New York, and on May 12th, that is Nicholas Benavides and Andres Soto. Nicholas is here if you want to talk to him, yeah. And then on May 12th at Juilliard, we have 3 chamber music premieres. So that is Jasmine Barnes, Elijah J. Thomas, and Lauren McCall at Juilliard. Yes. So you can visit our site, which is composersforum.org, American Composers Forum's website. And not only can you find out more about the program, but you can also find a variety of resources. If you just don't even know where to start, if you want to think about how to create a commission, if you want to think about starting a program like this, or if you just have, we get all kinds of questions. We actually have an Ask ACF place a button on the homepage. So just click there and we will help you get what you need. So thank you so much to everybody involved. Thank you, composers. Thank you, Sphinx. Thank you to my wonderful partners in this panel. Thank you to all of you for being here. Keep commissioning music.
Ça va?